Hey all, welcome to Circle of Town. And today, movie review. Bit of a change up. I've been waiting for this film for so long. I remember its inception. I'm talking about Mayhem. The movie is called Lords of Chaos, but it's pretty much telling the story from the family of Euronymous and friends and surviving band members of Mayhem, like his girlfriend, things like that. So they've pretty much put together every single important person that is related to that scene. They interviewed every single one. Not one person was left out of the research. All right, I'm trolling. Obviously, Varg. There's some issues with Varg, and I'll get into that later on. But if you're new to the channel, I have actually done some digging into Mayhem myself, and I've tried to recreate their tone, which is pretty hard because, you know, it's so primitive. So I get pretty deep in this channel when it comes to getting obsessed about the little things in the tonal change that can make all the difference. And I've done Immortal, I've done Celtic Frost. Let's get to it. What do I think of the movie, first of all? And the elephant in the room, apart from Varg, the Americanization of it is very ironic. It's very American, you know, there's American accents through the whole thing. Because there's amazing European movies like Troll Hunter and things like that, where they could have kept the accent aspect of it, you know, and still keep it tasteful. For some reason, they went with the American thing. And if you were trying to get a black metal movie greenlit, okay, you're up against it from day one, all right? Church burning and murder and teenage rebellion and, you know, nationalism and things like that. You're not exactly going to have mainstream corporate headquarters saying, oh yeah, let's sign off on this and make it, you know, let's glamorize this, you know. So it's going to be hard to be made unless you get some, you know, Western cheese wedges in there, you know. So let's be realistic. To be honest, after the first, whoa, this is not what I expected. After that, I kind of forgot about it because the acting was really bloody good, especially from Euronymous. Obviously, there's a few things like when they were trying to have a good time, man. You know, there was a little bit of that, but trying to recreate a metalhead is way harder than people give credit for. I mean, you only have to look at movies like Airheads and the rest of it to just see what a fucking cringe fest it usually is when people try and, try and be us, you know. So I'm going to give a little bit of leeway, unlike a lot of the neckbeards, because I am the elite neckbeard. But you got to be realistic, right? So the Americanization was annoying, but like I say, the acting was so good from everybody in the cast. There wasn't one actor that really jumped out at me that was bad. Maybe Varg. I think the actual acting might have been a little bit high school drama, but the rest of them, there were some great performances. But with me, what's way more important than the human aspect, than love, than hate, than death, the rest of it, the most important thing in my world is gear. And by God, did they get the amps, the guitars. They got the little things like being in the studio and singing into the headphones. And I was like, respect. Because, you know, not a lot of people know about what was used and things like that. And for them to get the historically accurate gear, even down to the cabinet type with the actual grill cloth, that is some attention to detail. And attention to detail is something that really leaped out at me, because when I first saw the awful Metallica video, which had these actors on it portraying Mayhem but pretending to play Metallica, and it's just the worst song. It's just it was good on paper, you know, I guess, but I was like, this movie's going to be terrible because it was so high def, right? It was so high def, and as if, you know, it reminds me if you have a movie actress, okay, and she's beautiful, if you do the Vaseline on the lens trick from the 50s and 60s. You know, if you have too much detail, like 4K, like Scarlett Johansson on The Last Avengers, 4K, the cracks start to appear a little bit. Scarlett Johansson is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, and Lost in Translation is a beautiful movie. But even somebody as beautiful as her in 4K and close-ups, it can drag you out of reality, right? And when Mayhem were playing live, I'm going to give a big ups to the director, because I believe this is done on purpose, because the photography was so crystal clear as to look fake. But then he would swap into a low-fi old school video camera style where it would look all snowy, and you know, and then it would all of a sudden it would look black metal. But then it would go back to the 4K, you know, everything popping and kind of like this looks fake. But then it goes back to the old school footage, and then all of a sudden you're in black metal land again. What that told me was, throughout this whole movie, it's basically stripping away the. Let's look at an album cover, the old black metal album covers, and what they would do, they would take photos of them in the forest and shit, and those photos would look stupid, right? But then if you photocopy that a couple of times, it looks black and white, and then all the resolution is gone, it looks haunting. That, I think, is what the director was doing, where it would look kind of like clownish when it was in 4K, and then when it was taken back to grainy footage, then all of a sudden it had that black metal essence. So what it was doing for me, this movie, was stripping away the layers of the lore, because black metal is all about lore. It's nothing to do with music. It's all about the lore, the church burning, the murders, the cool, the anti-establishment. It's mostly about that. Music is secondary. Okay, it's all about the actually keeping it real type of thing. Not being a poser like they kept on saying in the movie, which was a thing. I can relate to that aspect because I was pretty much alongside them where they were into the death metal era, and they were. Well, what's further ironic about it is because I've said this in my videos in the past, the Americanization is what they hated. So they hated the Burns production, the Florida sound. They hated that, where it was too big and too tight and too just, like black metal on ice type of thing. So then they get this movie which is all Americanized. So that's pretty funny. But I think that's part of the whole plan. The resolution, the 4K, seeing somebody get stabbed multiple times, that is real. It looked real. It was, I'm not going to say the word brutal, because brutal is supposed to be cool, right? I'm going to use the word real. It looked real, and it was shocking. And not, oh yeah, that was Evil Dead shocking. It was shocking. And I think that's what the movie's doing. It's unglamorizing the black metal scene to show you what it was. Okay? Like in my video, I told you, before this movie came out, was it 2 years ago, a year ago? And I said, I don't want to glamorize it. Because at the end of the day, they were a bunch of idiots. And a couple of weak-minded people in there with some wolves, some real wolves in amongst them. It's in all cultures. It's not just in black metal. You have some guys who like the crack, okay? We call it the crack in Britain, where you're in a scene and then you shock each other and take it worse. Let's look at Extension X. He was, gangster this, gangster that, and he got killed by a real gangster. There were skinheads around me, okay, when I was growing up, and I noticed a pattern. I noticed it pretty even when I was like 12, that there's usually 2 at most alphas in these skinhead groups, and a lot of weak people, a lot of people who are led and bullied, and they're terrified to get out of it. And that's kind of what happened in Mayhem. So it's not just a black metal thing. This is why rap and gang and being true and brutal and the rest of it, it's in rap, it's in skinhead culture, it's in all football hooligans. I've been knocked out by football hooligans. I've had a close-up of these scenes, right? Euronymous became one of these, not so much weak. I mean, he was kind of like out there, but he was one of these people that were like, what have I created? And I've seen that so many times in football hooliganism. And that wolf was Varg. if you want to get into a scene, if you want to get into a gang, if you want to get into something that's, say, a hardcore straight edge crew, they can get pretty crazy. It's fun until all of a sudden you get dragged in and it starts getting a bit too real, because you have some of the wolves at the top who are often mentally challenged and also had terrible upbringings, and they basically want to spill their anger out on innocent people. So it's all forms of life. Hardcore crews, black metal. I was kind of guilty of it on a lesser thing. I used to rip off Cinderella patches of people when I was a thrash guy. I'd never beat people up because they liked certain music. I might attack an Arsenal fan if I did see one. If nah, I'm joking. Go on, you Spurs! But I see it. I've hidden, young as I can remember. I remember fights going off in rugby clubs and me being like a child underneath the pool table because someone threw me under there to get me away from. There's glass breaking around me, and it's like I've been in the mayhem. And they really did create a monster, literally. And another thing which is still bothering me today is the fashion. They wanted to do their own thing, and they kind of created the true Norwegian black metal, and that is something that's made me cringe a little bit, because they kept on saying true Norwegian black metal. Did they actually say that back then? But then again, you have normies watching the movie. You can't just presume everyone's going to be a black metal neckbeard that's well versed on the lore of black metal. So normies have to watch this too, and they won't get the reference unless it's spelled out to them, obviously. So let's play devil's advocate. Now, when I say I think the movie was targeted to unglamorize the whole black metal scene, and let's look no further than the casting for Varg. A fat American sounding dude who was pretty not likable in the movie, and they didn't show Varg's charm, because even though he's a bad person, he's a charming person. Obviously, researching things, I've watched Varg's videos, and he's got his own, he's still going strong. And let's talk about what he was, right? I don't know if he was a skinhead before he was a black metal guy. I think he was into some sort of nationalist thing. So when he was introduced to Euronymous in the movie, he was kind of like all shy and the rest of it. And if you're in that world, if you're in the skinhead world or whatever, so if you're in that world, like I said, you're already dealing with the alphas of, say, I'll just say skinhead. You're already dealing with the alphas of the skinhead crew. So you kind of know how to go about that. So to go from skinheads to black metal teenagers, I don't think he would be that shrinking violet that they try to put in the movie. But I do think he was obviously influenced by Euronymous. Let's say it was probably a partnership between those to do the new black metal movement. Varg's personality. So he starts off the movie suggests that he's being molded by Euronymous and by the talk, which he takes more seriously than the rest of the bands. And again, I think that is to not make an anti-hero out of him. I believe he was not attractive and not charming, and kind of like looking like the average school shooter. You know what I mean? I think that was done on purpose again, to de-glamorize. It's almost as if I was being paranoid that to get this movie made, they would have to make sure that this didn't influence people to burn churches. All right. So they have to make the protagonist somebody you wouldn't want to be. It's like, I'm not going to be that guy. All right. So let's get that out the way. If I want to be thought control right now, if you're going to get a movie made, it's got to jump through the hoops of the corporations. You know what I'm saying, right? So I think that is the basis of the movie. But would I rather them have gone honest through the whole movie from every aspect, or would touchdown, or would I rather them de-glamorize it, which was my initial thought of what it should be? And why? Because now, I've said it in my old videos, black metal, the underground, is fucking bursting and ruined by black metal copycats. It's cosplay. It's the worst thing that's happened to the underground, all right? When Mayhem came out and everything, that was the best thing to happen to the underground. 20 years later, and we're still having Mayhem clones trying to be as brutal as possible, trying to, taking photos of themselves in the forest. That would make Euronymous roll in his fucking grave. It's because he was against the fashion. He was against, and it happened to grunge. Remember grunge? All of a sudden, you saw flannels on the catwalk where people assimilated this subculture, and now it's all of a sudden it's the worst aspect of culture, the glitzy Hollywood culture. So that's why I don't get it. That's why I don't get it. I do get it. It's that wolf thing. Kids want to be the wolf. They want to be big bad Varg. They want to be, scary Dead. They want to be Euronymous and the rest of it. And Dead. Let's talk about Dead for a little bit. Brilliantly acted, brilliantly scripted. They did a really good job of the twisted aspect of it. And, it's not like I knew any of these people, but I think that it was done perfectly, and it made suicide look like a chore and a horror and real. It wasn't brutal, it was real. You know what I mean? So that's another great aspect of the director that I thought was fantastic. So yeah, a very sad story. It's mental illness obviously is that sexy, kids. Black metal cosplay, heavy metal dress up kids. Yeah, that's kind of the reason why I'm done with the underground, and I've done videos on why the underground has been ruined by copycats. You have your stoner metal, you have everybody trying to be either Matt Pike or new wave of British heavy metal with bullet belts and fucking how long has the thrash thing been going on now with people dressing up in their tight black jeans with their big white high tops, and they're kicking up dust like Testament in their videos. It's, if you could write like Testament, please go ahead, but stop trying to look like it and ripping off their riffs. It's like every scene, the copycat aspect is driving me insane. And I'm hoping this movie will make the underground jump the shark on black metal. Black and roll, fucking black and rap, fucking blackened this, blackened. If I hear another anguished scream over trem picking and terrible production, I'll fucking scream. It was great the first time round. It was great when Bathory and Hellhammer did it. I mean, what the fuck? It's not art anymore. It's contrived copycat fucking cosplay, and it's ruined the underground. It's ruined metal, and it's become a parody of its intent to shock. Now it's people, it's like, it reminds me of nerds with album covers. This one's blacker than the next. This one has a weirder logo, and oh look, this is the thank you letter is in real blood. It's like, what are you doing? Stop. create something new, or not even new. Write a good chorus, right? It's like, fuck. So yeah, I'm frustrated with the whole scene. You're going to get a lot of hardcore black metal guys going over the lore with a fine-tooth comb, forgetting that they are basically cosplayers. And some people love the music and they can listen to it 24/7. I love the music. I do listen to a lot of it. There's a lot of great black metal bands in the Facebook group that we have. So no disrespect to the people who can do it well, but still, I think you're wasting your time. I think you've got to find your own path and your own fucking demons. Don't copy and paste somebody else's demons by getting a heavy metal 2-pedal and screaming into fucking headphones. So let's talk about Varg. Let's talk about Varg, baby. It's what you all come here for, right? All you bitches, come here for the Varg. Think about what I said about the murderer of X, right? Gangster killing. And he did a video of himself, right? Bragging about it. The murderer did. He had red, his face was covered, and he was bragging about how X was begging for his life and, saying that he wasn't ready to die as kids. He was making fun of him, going, oh, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. He was mimicking what he saw before he shot him, which was fucking repulsive. And the death of Euronymous was as repulsive as that video. And it was really shocking, okay? And let's think about where Varg was. He was a murderer. He was he was racist, nationalist, he'll say, but which is kind of ironic because he did move to France. So if he's worried about borders and he could move freely across a border, and get land in a different country and the rest of it. That's freedom, right? That's the dream. But apparently he doesn't want borders. So he could not have afforded to live at home if that was the case. So it's kind of a weird situation with Varg from that aspect. You know, I'm sure he's probably answered that, you know, if you're so nationalistic, why did you move? And, you know, so to a different country, even though it's still part of Europe, but still, you know, it's just a border, right? But let's hear about, so he's a murderer, he's a racist, I'm just going to say it. Also didn't really have that thing inside of him which worried, because obviously you're not going to turn yourself in if you worry. So he's got that mental thing, right? Let's talk about his reform. So this kid that killed X, all right? So he's going to be in prison in America, and he's going to get toughened, and he's obviously not going to become better as a person. So let's talk about Norwegian prisons. Varg came out of there, you know, he went through, you could see him like halfway through, he looked like a Nazi. And then halfway through after that, when he came out, he kind of looked normal. And he went back to like, he has pagan beliefs, deep pagan beliefs, and he's gone full into that. So he now hasn't fucking killed anyone. He's written his own board game, okay, like Dungeons and Dragons type, obviously, which is, and because it's Varg, it only has like national people, you know, white characters and the rest of it, I believe. I might be wrong. So he's done that. He's married, he has kids, he's got a farm, and he is taking advantage of his freedom. He's reformed, all right? I don't know if, you know, talk about forgiveness and the rest of it, but I think maybe a round of applause for the prison systems in Norway or France, or I'm not sure where he went to prison. My research is amazing, but obviously he's a reformed character. So yeah, I think the American prison system, the way that it basically makes animals stronger and forms alliances, and, you know, you have to join a gang when you're in there, otherwise you get fucked up and the rest of it. It's a different type of thing though, so maybe they, you know, those prison systems, smaller sample sizes are easier to manage, and less murderers in that country is easier to manage, so maybe he get more hands-on help. But so if we legalize marijuana and got rid of all these poor bastards that are in there for like possession after 3 strikes and all that shit, and if you only have these prisons full of the real criminals, then you'll obviously be able to manage them better, and maybe make them pay their dues. They'll be in there for a fucking long time, and then when they get out, maybe they won't be straight back in, you know. I think there's there's some lessons to learn on this one. So I think that's what a lot of gang violence is all about. Most of the people in these gangs, they're scared, or they're pressured, or they just like the parties and the bitches and the rep, but then they have to deal with that wolf, that crazy fucker. And then that crazy fucker will, you know, you'll be more scared of him than not attacking somebody else or shooting somebody else. So that there's a lot of that. A lot of gangs are pussies. A lot of them are. But then they have 2 or 3 alphas that turns them into a terrifying fucking killing machine because of the threat, you know? So that's what this movie did for me, where it kind of did paint a picture of society where it needs to be. Like, I'm a libertarian, and I get the nationalist aspect that Varg goes, because I do think he has valid points about the church turning everything into like McDonald's, where churches do tend to get rid of the old ways, like the old ways of praying, the old gods, the old traditions. You know, there's lots of weird old traditions, like, you know, maypoles, and so it's like things like that go by the wayside, because all of a sudden the church takes over, and then all of a sudden everybody is, you know, it wipes your culture. So I understand from that aspect, but the problem being libertarian online is, like, I listen to when the algorithm doesn't know what to do with the libertarian. It thinks I'm interested in, you know, if transsexuals go into toilets. It thinks I'm interested in black versus white people. It thinks I'm interested in all that bullshit. And what that is a tool. If you're left or if you're right, that makes you argue, that the establishment makes you argue with each other. So it wants the poor to point fingers at the poor, because when you're pointing fingers at the the transsexuals, or if you're pointing fingers at the gays, or if you're pointing fingers at women's bodies, gays, guns, vaginas, I call it. So you're pointing fingers at each other. It's the poor pointing fingers at the poor, right? When they should be pointing fingers at the establishment. There's no left and right in England. There's no left and right in Washington. It's all about the establishment, and it's donors, basically. Donors are the ones who do not want to have their fingers pointed at you. So if you really did want to make change, the left gets together with the right just for a while. Varg needs to shake hand with whatever guy's city we bombed and he fled to fucking France. You know what I mean? Because of Western and China policies of nation building, right? So we reduce their town to rubble. They have to go somewhere. And if Varg gets with those people and say, let's go at the donors. Let's all go at Citibank. Not physically attack them, but everybody get online and say, cut up your Citibank card. Or you better still, run it up and don't pay it off. Because Citibank, people like that are the enemy, And Bank of America, the central banks, Wall Street, that's the real enemy. And they want you to worry about fucking what sign is put on a bathroom. You think that is newsworthy? Touchdown. So yeah, being a fucking libertarian online is a chore with the algorithm, because it thinks that I'm either fucking racist, or it thinks that I don't want borders, or it doesn't know what the fuck to do. All right, so that was not so much a movie review, but a review on the impact that this movie has on the microcosm of life. Watch yourself when you get in the scenes. Watch yourself. Watch out for that fucking alpha. Watch out for that crocodile has teeth. Talking about borders and Brexit and left versus right and immigrants and that type of thing. Both ways are wrong. Open borders are wrong, and the current way it is. It took me 6 years to get my green card. Doing it legally took me 6 years. My immigration attorney died of old age during my processing. So, fun times, right? So it's broken from every angle. So things has to be done. Libertarians aren't black and white. Libertarians doesn't mean no law. You know what I mean? People think libertarians don't want regulation. It's the most fundamental thing. The reason that the health system in here is ridiculous is because there's no regulation. We need a watchdog. A libertarian wants a watchdog in America that sniffs out price gouging. So if, for instance, I had back surgery, just for the back brace, which is a regular, normal, over-the-counter back brace, they wanted $800 for it. And with my insurance, it only cost me $100. The thing cost $20 to make, right? It wasn't a special one, made to measure and the rest of it. It's like, are you fat or not? Here's your back brace, $800. That $800 gets charged, and then they work it out with the insurance, and the insurance doesn't pay $600. Me, that $800 that I spent on the rest of it, that's where the money is. Because then if you charge $1,000 for a pill that cost you $4 to make, a watchdog is going to say, hey, you're going to prison. Not a fine. So yeah, tough subjects, a tough movie to watch at parts. It was so easy to watch at parts, and then it would drag you into realism, which was perfect. And if I was the director, I'd stay off social media for a while, because you're going to get some true black metal neckbeards telling you about Americana this and blah, blah, blah that, and why is he fat? And I don't think they get the ramifications of why the movie ended up the way it was. Would I prefer it to be true? Would I prefer them to bring out a movie where Varg was slim and charming and, he was a good-looking kid back then? It's like, it wouldn't get made. So I'd rather have a movie, the way it is. And I think for everything, it was a good movie. It was one of the most brutal movies I've seen. Well, that stream of consciousness took its toll on the battery, so I think I did yak on a bit. So let's wrap it up. I think that pretty much explains it, and I hope you like my breakdown. If not, you're not going to be in the black circle of town. I'm going to throw you out of the black circle of town. Sorry, I got a new outfit on. Look at it. keep staring. Let the headache come. To help the channel out, if you can become a patron of Tone, and the link is below. And what is the last patron? Okay, so thank you to Evan H and Luke S, our new patrons of Tone. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it, especially with Apocalypse 2 on the horizon. So it's fun times to be a musician on YouTube, especially with the family-friendly in charge.